The start of our HSC course is all about the nature of continuity and change, and it's separated into these four big ideas. Firstly, that change is a complex process, right? So we've talked a lot in the past about how people within societies interact with one another and how societies essentially function. Now, we're going to start to look at how societies manage change over time. And there are two distinctive branches of how they do that. Change can be either evolutionary or change can be transformative. And we're going to talk a lot about both of those as we go on. Finally, our first section of the course looks at resistance to change. What are the reasons why people within a society would resist change, or what halts progress from happening? So these are the four key ideas that we're going to address in the start of our HSC course. The first type of change I wanted to look at is evolutionary change. Now, evolutionary change is incremental and occurs over a long period of time, generally at the macro level of society. So when we're looking to determine if a change within a society is evolutionary, what we want to see is that it's slow and that it happens over a long period of time. One of the best examples of that is demographic change. So if you think about your own community, the percentage of people from certain ethnicities, the number of languages spoken, those things generally change really slowly and they build on one another. So the main street of Burwood doesn't look today like it would have looked 50 years ago, but it didn't happen overnight. It built on small incremental changes as communities came in, as particular restaurants and families, cultures came to the area. That changed slowly over time what was normal and what was considered adopted by the community. So that is an example of an evolutionary change within a community. Another type of change that we look at in our course is transformative change. Now, what distinguishes evolutionary change from transformative change is that transformative change is rapid and typically irreversible. So when we're trying to figure out if a change within a society is transformative, what we want to see is how quickly that change was adopted and by what means. There is usually some element of conflict involved or some form of rebellion. So a recent example of a transformative change in civil society would be the Arab Spring that occurred across North Africa and the Middle East. Almost overnight, societies were changed, and in very substantial ways, the culture of those places has been changed irreversibly. So it's one example that we use to help describe what transformative change might look like within a society. Finally, let's look at resistance to change. Now, obviously, we know that societies do change over time, but what are some of the reasons that someone might want them not to change, or might want a particular circumstance not to change within a society? Now, the most obvious reason we find for resistance to change is that the status quo, the situation at the moment, benefits a person in power. So if you're a dictator of a society, well, obviously revolution's not going to be particularly great for you. So you might therefore resist change within a society. But we can also see this effect at a community level or a smaller level, where cultures within an area might be established and they might not like new migrants, they might not like new attitudes, new opinions coming into a community that has been established. And so that's an example of resistance to change. Typically, we find it where the status quo, the situation at the moment, greatly benefits a certain group of people, and those are the people who will display resistance to change.